All right, welcome to the Tim Gotzler. Holy cow, I'm going to stop that. We're here with Rob Hamilton from Sun Prairie High School. Coach, how you doing today?
I'm doing great. How are you doing?
I'm doing fantastic. Well, hey, let's get right into it. So tell us about your journey in baseball. Maybe, where'd you grow up, your journey as a player and as a coach?
Well, I grew up a small town near Sun Prairie here in Waterloo, Wisconsin here, and graduated from high school in 1980, and then I went to lacrosse and played baseball there. And then I graduated with a Phy-Ed and health degree, and I kind of bounced around, got a teaching job in Illinois and then Brown Deer and New Berlin, and coached a little bit of baseball there, and then landed here in Sun Prairie. My first year was 92, 93. And I was the assistant baseball coach for 8 years under Gary By. And we were fortunate enough to win a state title in 94 and in 97. And then I took over in 2000.
Okay, so your first season is 2001?
Yeah.
Okay, so would this been your 20th year as head coach this past spring? Is that about right?
Yes, it would have been. Yep.
So if my research is correct, 10 trips to the state tournament, 5 state championships, a back-to-back, and then a three-peat in there?
Yeah.
Holy cow.
Yeah, we've been pretty fortunate to have a lot of really good baseball players come through here.
Fantastic. Well, what type of player were you? So at lacrosse, what positions you play?
I pitched.
Okay. Righty?
Yep.
Lefty?
Righty. Yeah.
Starter, reliever?
I was a starter.
Okay. Fantastic.
Yeah.
All right. So obviously you've been coaching baseball for a long time. I know you just recently retired from the classroom. So what subject did you teach?
I taught health for the most part. Yeah, I had a PE degree, but mostly I taught health at the high school level.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So one of the most popular questions, right? It's a sports talk radio question. Is you look at your kind of Mount Rushmore of coaching influences. So as you look back on your career so far, who are the 3 or 4 guys that's really impacted you the most?
Oh boy, I would say right off the bat, Art Westfall was my high school baseball coach, and I think he might have been one of the first to start the WBCA in Wisconsin, along with Mark Fuller and some of those guys. And then he left to go coach college baseball at Bethany Lutheran College. But that's kind of coach he was. He was at that level, and so when you're at a small town like Waterloo and you get somebody that good, and he was just a real good teacher of the game. And so I still keep in contact with him, and I still call him when I have some questions and I need some solid advice. He would be definitely my first that I would put on there. Another one was our pitching coach at UW Lacrosse, Raleigh Christensen. And Raleigh also coached football for years at Lacrosse. He was their defensive coordinator, but he was our pitching coach. And then I played in the summer up there with a team called the Lacrosse Old Styles. And he was also the coach for that. And he was just a mentally tough guy that was fun to play for. But when you got between the lines, he was all about competing. And he was really fun to play for, and a great guy. And probably the last one would be Mike Davenport with Madison College. I don't know if you know Mike or not, but if you don't, he's a great guy, a great coach, and super humble, but I think as good a coach as there is around. And I'm sure he could be coaching other places, but I think he's kind of also a huge family man, and I think he's just happy in this area. And but man, he's really knowledgeable and a really great guy with his time and whatnot. And so probably those 3 right now.
Yeah, what always amazes me with Mike, and hoping at some point to get him on here, is he's got such a impressive record. He sends kids all over the country and to all certain levels, and he's got 1 or 2 assistants at times, but I feel like there's times he's doing it by himself. So being so close to him, like how does he do it? What makes him so special?
Yeah, that is a great question, and I do marvel at that too. I've gone to some of their practices, and you're right. I mean, he doesn't have a ton of assistants running around helping him out in various positions, and different things like that. But he's got a plan, and it's pretty laid back. He's, he doesn't make things overcomplicated. He doesn't get too uptight, and yeah, he's really good.
Yeah, that's quite the list right there. You think about your youth days as a high schooler through college, and then with Coach D. So now, outside of our area, is there anybody maybe at the national level that you've gotten to know, even just you read their book, you heard them speak, maybe that's even outside of baseball? Is there anybody that personality wise maybe you align with, or if there's a program that you think you're always stealing nuggets from?
As you say that, the only person that really kind of comes to my mind would be Mike D at UIC, where I played with him with the Lacrosse Old Styles, and I got to know him there. He was coaching at Aquinas at that time, and then he went down to Chicago, and I heard him, and I thought, you're playing college baseball, you play with the Old Styles, pretty good baseball, you think you kind of know the game. And I went, and when I started coaching baseball at the high school level, I went to WBCA clinic at that time in Milwaukee, and Mike was speaking, and I could not believe how many notes I was taking. And I walked out of there with probably 5 pages of notes from him talking about hitting and infield and whatever it was. And since then, I've been down to his practices several times, and just picked his brain. And Sean McDermott is one of his assistants. And I've learned a ton. He probably has no idea about that, but I've learned a ton from him. And just he's also kind of a fiery guy that I think, as the years have gone on, maybe is a little more philosophical than maybe he used to be, and different things like that. So just kind of watched him kind of from afar, and have always kind of admired the job he's done. Rob Fornacier at Minnesota was also a Sun Prairie graduate, and so I've known him for quite a few years, and he's another guy that I've been able to call and talk with, and go to Minnesota and watch some of their practices, and another really, really good guy.
That's fantastic. I mean, both those guys spoke in the last couple of years at the WBCA. I got to imagine you had a pretty strong hand in that, in locking those guys in.
Mark Fuller does a really good job with those guys, and obviously, if you know Mark, he knows everybody, and not just in the country, if they have something to do with baseball. And the Godfather usually does a pretty good job of locking those guys up on his own. So,
oh, that's great. Now, you sent an unbelievable amount of players to college baseball. And I always feel like, when you talk to those guys as their college students, sometimes you get an inside look into their collegiate programs, just to hear their experience. Is there a program that you sent a player to that you thought maybe you've stolen something, or they run there's a certain philosophy or something that they've come back to you and said, hey coach, you got to bring this to Sun Prairie?
Oh, that's a great question. And I guess off the top of my head, I can't think of any program that I would say, oh yeah, that's, we've had, Tony Butler went to Virginia, and I remember we brought him back here, and, he was talking about some things, but I don't know if there was anything in particular that I remember. Years ago, we had a kid that went to UW Oshkosh as a pitcher, and he came back and showed us a lot of various drills that the pitchers were doing, and so we've incorporated some of those. But gosh, off the top of my head, I can't pick a school that said, yeah, we've taken this from them or anything.
Okay, let's take it back into Sun Prairie. So, give us the scope of baseball in your community. From youth all the way through your high school program. What does it look like?
Well, and that's changing, but we have a really great Little League organization, and I'm on the board of that, and I'm so impressed with some of our young parents and the dedication that they have to that. And we've really tried to make that an organization that we don't try to separate the kids too soon, where we don't want them, well, let's have a traveling team at age 9, and then let's have kind of a rec league for the rest of the league. Let's take our top 12, and I know some communities do that, and I'm not saying ours is right and theirs is wrong. I'm just saying what we've done here is we've tried not to do that because, as you know, who knows which 10-year-old is going to really turn out to be really good at 16, 17 years old. And we just try not to turn any kid off to baseball at a young age. And so we've really tried to make our league really important and really tried to do a good job with the draft so that the teams are equal and the play is really competitive. And then we have now also kind of incorporated where we do take teams out of there. We'll take, and maybe we'll split at age 9. We won't have an A team, but we'll divide it into 2 equal teams. And we do that for a year or 2. And then we decide, okay, now they're getting a little older. We're going to try to make an A team and a B team out of this age group. And, but as I said, it's changing because we get a lot of parents that are now leaving and they're going to play travel baseball. And again, I'm not saying that that's wrong. It's just not something that I've done with my boys. I got my youngest now is playing for GRB, and it was hard because we have a summer program. Obviously, this year we didn't because of the COVID, and they were able to play for GRB, so that worked out okay. But you hate to leave the Sun Prairie kids because of the team chemistry and all of that stuff. But I think, if your kid wants to play at that next level and if he wants to get recruited and get noticed, I think maybe after their freshman year, if they're a talented enough player, they can play in a travel program, then maybe that would be the time to do it instead of trying to do it too early. And I know parents get a little nervous about that. Well, I don't know, the Joneses are going to go over there and they're going to play at sticks, or they're going to go play at hitters or whatnot. And so they get a little nervous. And so then they decide to do that route too. And I just remember a few years back when we had some, my younger kids playing in Little League, some of the parents would be like at the end of the tournament season, and they'd say, Coach, we got to get into another tournament. And now we're, getting almost into August. And I'm like, well, why do you feel that way? And he says, because our kid says he wants to play more. He still wants to play more. And I said, now's the time then to quit playing. In my belief would be, let's quit when they do want more. Instead of, are we waiting for them to say, Dad, I am so sick of baseball. I don't want to go to this next tournament. And then we're going to say, okay. And then pretty soon next year, they're like, nah, I don't think I really want to play baseball anymore. And so I don't think you need to just overwhelm the kids with travel and games and games and games at a young age. Really get a good Little League system going and get good coaches down there that care about the kids. And then as they get into the high school age group, maybe then they can venture out to do a little more travel. My thoughts.
Yeah, no, thanks for sharing that. Thanks for opening that up. So, all right, now they're entering freshman year of high school, and now no matter what path they took to get there, they're now in the building. So, what does your high school program look like? Do you have 3 teams? Varsity, JV1, JV2? Do you have multiple freshman teams? What does it look like?
We have a varsity team, we have a JV team, and then we have 2 freshman teams. We have an A and a B. We try not to cut at the freshman level. And so a lot of times those kids, it might be even their first time they've ever even tried to play baseball. And so we have a team that competes in the Big 8, and we have probably maybe Middleton, and sometimes we'll get another school in there that'll have a third team, maybe Verona or somebody will have a second freshman team. So, but otherwise we'll take our freshman B team, and we might play, some smaller communities, JV teams or their freshman teams, like maybe a Waterloo or a Marshall or something like that. Milton, different towns like that. Waupun, we've tried to play, and so we try to get those kids their games as well. But I think it's going to evolve to a JV2 team and they can play more games at the JV level and different things like that. So we're kind of evolving with that as well. And we're also trying to build another school. And in 3 years, we're going to have 2 high schools. So I don't think that we're going to try to even cut even at the JV level, so that when we do split, we have a lot of kids trying to play, although we aren't cutting a whole lot of kids anymore nowadays. We don't have to worry too much about that.
Well, that was kind of my next question was, how many kids typically show up for tryouts? And, what is your big number going to the first day of tryouts? And how do you structure tryouts? I'm always intrigued. Every coach has a different setup. Some people do a showcase type. They do maybe an inter-squad scrimmage. They practice, different grade levels at the same time. Even you, how do you divide your time? Do you go down and see the freshmen? So give us the look at what, the first day of tryouts.
Yeah. Usually we have we're fortunate to get that pitcher catcher week that we got. And so we had the freshmen and JV together, or maybe the freshmen and sophomore kids together, and then the juniors and seniors together. I take that back. Actually, we did the seniors and freshmen because we had so many freshmen, and usually the smallest group of seniors. And then we had the sophomores and juniors together. And we said everybody is a pitcher or catcher. And especially, as you know, with the pitch limit, you don't know who's going to be able to throw strikes. And so we're just trying to really zero in and try to teach all these kids the simple basics of pitching. Because I'm amazed, I'm sure you would probably attest to this as well. You just say, hey, you go quick throw batting practice. And the kid's like, I can't throw batting practice. And you're like, well, you're a baseball player. You can't. We're going to shorten up the L screen so that you're only going to throw 15, 20 feet. And you're like, oh my gosh, he can't. And so we're trying to get all these kids the ability that they can at least do that. So that week of pitcher catchers kind of helps us kind of get a feel for some of these kids and the athletes that we might have. And then for our tryouts, we really just go juniors and seniors, the varsity team. And then if we feel that there might be a freshman or a sophomore or 2 or 3 that might have that ability to play at that varsity level, we'll invite them up, and we do 3 days of tryouts. And so we do a varsity tryout, a JV tryout, and then the freshmen practice together as well. And so the freshmen usually practice for like a week together, and then they divide their teams not equally, but the A and the B team. And then we'll practice our 3 days. And then if we think the kid can stay with us, we'll keep them up with us. Sometimes it's pretty fluid throughout the year, where we'll take a kid and it might be a pitcher and he might throw for us on Tuesday, but he's also a pretty good hitter, but probably not at the varsity level. So we might send him back down to JV, and then he'll get his swings in on maybe Thursday and Saturday. And then if we need another reliever or a pitcher, we might bring him back up. So we'll do that with a couple kids here and there once in a while to make sure they can still get their innings. I'm not a big believer in bringing up younger kids and sitting them. And so we try to make sure that they still get their innings in. But for what a tryout looks like for us is we kind of just try to, we time them and in the 40, there's 60, and we will try to get a ton of looks in the batting cage, and we videotape and try to get a look at their swings. And same thing with our infield and our outfield and our pitching and stuff like that. And then if it's nice enough, which it might be this year since we're starting later, we really try to get them into game situations. We got something that we call one-eyed cat, which is where we bring the L screen up shorter distance, and either a coach will pitch or a pitcher, but a little more action instead of 60 feet 6 inches away and have that pitcher have some control problems, and you're looking at your watch going, we're not getting enough look at these guys. Or the right fielder might be out there and he never gets the ball hit to him, so we can't really tell there. So we try to move the kids around, and we try to get a lot of action, a game-like situation. They all look good in ground balls in the gym, and you're like, holy smokes. And then you get them out and the bullets start flying, and the pressure's on them, and all of a sudden that changes a little bit. And so if we can get scrimmages going in inter squad games, we do as much of that as possible. And go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, it's all right. That one-eyed cat. So is it cat? So it's like a simulated game on the field in just high pace, high tempo.
Yep. And then 3 outs, clear the bases, another 3 outs, and try to put a little at stake as far as sprints afterwards or something to make sure that it's competitive. But it's tryouts, so it usually is pretty competitive anyways. But we tell our kids for tryouts, we're probably not going to coach you a lot in these first 3 days, because if your swing doesn't look very good, and I'm trying to work with you on that, and then some other kid ends up getting cut, and you're like, well, but you worked with Tim and you never worked with me. And so we're trying to avoid any favoritism that they might come back and say, and we just want it to be fair and equal. And so we just say, show us what you got for these 3 days. And obviously, if we can say something real quick to a kid, we're going to, like, hey, you're opening up a little too soon. Try to hit that ball the opposite way. Stay in there, stay closed, or whatever. But we try not to do a ton of real breakdown teaching in those 3 days, so that it's just kind of fair for everybody. And we try to get a really good look at it. And, in between innings, our outfield coach will be hitting them, fungos, and our infield coach and our pitching coach will have other people down at the bullpen. So we're trying to get looks as often as we can on those.
Right. Well, I mean, you guys obviously play pretty deep into June every year, and fortunate to play at the state tournament, like I said, 10 years. But obviously then your summer program starts, and you mentioned, do you guys have a Legion program in town?
We do. It's not Legion anymore. Actually, it's sponsored by Prairie Athletic Club, so it's called our PAC team. And we used to have 3. So we'll just call them Legion teams. And we are now scraping to get 1. Again, we got a lot of people all playing travel baseball, but we don't want to just, disintegrate it, and because we want to try to make sure that these other kids do have a place to play in the summer. If they don't want to maybe play beyond high school and they want to stay home, or sometimes you get that kid that's really into football, and so he's doing his football camps, but he still likes baseball and he's still a good player. So we try to keep our Legion team alive and still playing, but it's hard because other communities are kind of running into the same thing. And so, a lot of times your pitchers and your catchers are gone, and now you're like, well, okay, we got 12 guys, but we really don't have many guys that can pitch. We have nobody that can catch. And so it gets to be kind of tough. It really does. But so far we're managing it.
Oh, I'd like to dig back into your high school program. So, like flying over your program, the 30,000-foot view, again, all the banners, all the accolades, all the college players. Like, I'd love to know what, do you have any pillars of your program? What's your program built on?
Well, I think first and foremost, you've got to have good people, and we've hired coaches that sometimes don't know a ton of baseball, but they're really good with kids and they're good leaders. And so I believe I have the best staff in the state, and I'm sure you and I would argue that, because I'm sure you think you do, and that's what it's supposed to be. But I would go down in flames for my guys, because I really believe that they are the best. I had Peter Guma. He's a Waukesha guy. He graduated from Waukesha. Jack Marchese, he coached in your area at West Allis, and Tyler Payne pitched in Mankato area, and my JV coach is Chad Kavanaugh, who is also a football coach from around this area. Aaron Buss played at UW Whitewater. He's a football coach. He's my freshman coach. Michael Pogue is my freshman B coach. He's a football coach. So a lot of these guys, and I don't know how I'm going to do that when football overlaps for 3 weeks this spring. I don't know how I'm going to get all these coaches to do all of this, because they're going to be coaching football. But I think really it starts with making sure you have good good foundation with good leadership at all of those levels. Because if you don't, you can't run a successful program. So I'm really, really fortunate with the assistant coaches that I have. And then, I think,
I cut you off there for a second.
yeah,
That's it's just very eye-opening to me. As much success as the varsity team has every year, you're talking about the program as a whole. So to me, I picture you at times in that CEO role, right? And you're managing all these other men, these other leaders that are having all the touch points with your kids, and pitching coach, hitting coach, freshmen, because you can't be everywhere at one time. So I'd love to know, is there things that you do in the off season with your staff, professional development? Do you guys meet? Do you guys go to clinics together? How do you build that staff?
and I think you'd be surprised at how little we meet. Maybe, once or twice before the season starts, and that's about it. We go to the WBCA clinic together, and we'll meet there as well. But otherwise, we don't meet a whole lot. And again, I understand that these guys have young families. I understand that they're football coaches. I understand football meets all the time. I don't know if you're a football guy, but I used to be, and
Years ago,
there's a lot. There's a lot to football. Do you coach football?
I did before my kids were born. I was on the football staff.
Yeah, and that's pretty intense. And so I try to respect their time, and I know that they're involved in other sports and their families and whatnot. So we really don't meet a ton as a group. I'll meet with maybe our assistant coaches at the varsity level, and then we'll always obviously share everything and how we want our pitchers to be taught, and how we want this year to be the thing we're really working on that we learned in the off season about hitting this year, or whatever it might be. But I think, again, it goes back to hiring quality guys that have leadership ability. And I'm not sure why, but it just seems like nowadays people don't want to be leaders. They don't want to make that tough decision, and they don't want to, put down tough rules. And that's not our group. Our group is really, really, really good with that, really sound. And I try to say, hey, here's my philosophy, and I would like you to, kind of have the same type of philosophy, but I don't want you to coach like me. You coach like you. You be you. But here are some things. We're not going to have facial hair. We're not going to wear some pants up, some down. We're not going to, wear certain different colors under the. I mean, we're going to have certain things that we believe are Sun Prairie baseball. And when you put that jersey on, that means a lot. But otherwise, no, I don't have a lot of secrets to hand out there. It's just hiring the right guys.
Fantastic. Well, and you started to get into it with just kind of the Sun Prairie baseball way. So when I say that, what else comes to mind? Are there certain team building activities? Are there certain things you do as a program you think that makes you unique or consistent, that separates you from the pack?
I think like all programs, my dog is scratching to get out here. But when they leave, we want to make sure that they understand what commitment means. To be committed to a team, that's a lot different than, yeah, I'm not going to quit, and yeah, I'll be a good team player until things don't go right for me. That's not what commitment is. And so we want them to understand what commitment really means. We want them to understand responsibility, to be on time, to clean up the dugout. We want them to understand what team first means. To put yourself, second is not always easy, especially when you're a senior and you played as a junior, and now all of a sudden you're not playing because we have this freshman or sophomore that's really, really good, and he's better than you. How do you handle adversity? When that umpire makes that bad call, how do you handle adversity when the other team and their dugout is doing all these cat calls and zoo animals and stuff, and we don't allow that. How are you going to handle that on the mound and various things? Mental toughness. We want you to walk out of here and feel like, you know what, I'm a mentally tougher person. I can handle things, when it comes to my job, when I get hired there, because of all of these things. We also want them, obviously, to learn the game, to play the game the right way, and then also enjoy it, And I don't know. We play to win. I don't really want to, apologize for that. That is our main goal at the varsity level, and we tell the parents that every year. We are here to win, and we're not here to win at the freshman level, and we're not here to win at the JV level, but it goes up a little bit. And this isn't Little League where everybody gets to play. It is at the freshman level. We try to play everybody every game, and if they deserve it, if they're practicing hard. Otherwise, we don't really back down from that at the varsity level to say, you know what, you can't go on spring break. If you want to be a Sun Prairie baseball player, you're not going. If you want to go as a JV player, you can, but you come back and you're going to miss 2 games. As a freshman, you can go, but you're going to miss 1 game. So we try to put some standards down, but yet try to, get them to understand that the next level, it might be a little stricter.
Yeah, that sounds like, again, commitment, to all facets of the game, how you behave in the dugout, in practice, again, what you do off the field, when you become part of Sun Prairie baseball, this is just what we do. It's our standard. That's fantastic. So
yeah, I don't know if it's right or wrong. It's just the way we do it. So I'm not here to say this is the way, this is right. If you want to do your cat calls in the dugout and you feel that might get you a win, go ahead. I'm not saying that's the wrong way to do it. It's just not how we play.
That's your brand. As you kind of peel back more of the program, are there certain, what do you guys do for fundraising? What does that look like for you guys in your program?
We do a pledge letter. One of the things that we try to do that might be unique would be, we really try to, well, as all of us do, we try to keep baseball important in your community. And sometimes that's not very easy, right? It's not football, it's not basketball. And sometimes it's in the spring and people want to go on spring break and they're tired of, the fundraising and all of that stuff. And so sometimes I think baseball can get kind of swept under the rug if you're not careful. So we really try to keep it in the community's eye. So I tell our kids, we need to, if we want the community to support, we got to get back. And so one of the things that we do is we have our kids rake leaves for the elderly. We'll take a Saturday or a Sunday, and if you're kind of a shut-in or if you need help, I talk to the Colonial Club and elderly community in Sun Prairie, and I talk to our churches and say, hey, do you know anybody? Or we put it in the newspaper. If you need your leaves raked or you need something done, maybe your lawn furniture brought in from the garage out to the patio or from downstairs, or you need your east troughs cleaned or whatever it might be. So we spend a day trying to help the community shut-ins or the elderly there. And we also will have our kids work the Sunshine Suppers, where we're feeding the needy in Sun Prairie. And we'll also have them work at the food pantry when they have their big mail delivery day on a Saturday. We do Strikeout Cancer. We play Middleton, and it's called Cardinals Strikeout Cancer. They're the Middleton Cardinals, or the Sun Prairie Cardinals, and we play and we do a big fundraising during the game, and we've raised probably about 10 to 13,000 every year, and we've done it. Tom Schmidt, the former Middleton baseball coach, and I are good friends, and it was his idea, and we've kept it going here after he's retired. But we've probably raised maybe 60, 70,000 for pediatric cancer here that goes to the Children's Hospital here. Unfortunately, both programs have been stricken with kids that have had that are players and whatnot, so it really hits home. But we try to run free camps for our kids and stuff like that. So I think if we can show the community we're trying to give back, we're going to get their support. And one of the things we do is send a pledge letter out. And also we have a board on our concession stand that's Friends of Baseball. And if you give us X amount, you can get a single or a double or a triple or a home run or a grand slam hit for the cycle. So if you give a certain amount of money, your name or your company's name can go on there, or your name can go in our baseball program and different things like that. So the pledge letter is a big fundraiser for us. And usually each kid will write out like 10 letters, and then we usually do a fair amount with that. And then a lot of times that's about all we'll do. Other times in the past, we've done a bed sale for a few years. That went really well. And we've done car dealerships where they bring cars up to our parking lot, and for every person that drives a car, just test drives it, that dealership gives us X amount of dollars. And they're hoping to, obviously sell a car, and we're actually getting the cash for every time they drive one. So we've done some things like that have been able to. I think if you're a young coach and you don't fundraise and you're just expecting your athletic director to give you the money, you're going to be in trouble. And we're fortunate right now to have all of us have our own boosters. So the money we raise stays with us. It doesn't go into this big pot. I'm a big believer in that. I think if every sport would really get after it, you could really make whatever you want. And so I think that's really helped our program as far as buying, the nice pitching machine that we want, or certain bats that we want, or when we go on a team bonding thing, that gets paid for, and different stuff like that. So that's kind of what we've done for fundraising.
Fantastic. Now, you mentioned like team bonding activities. Do you have things that you do every year, certain traditions that are, you dial them up every year, they work, certain places that you go? Again, you talk about the letters you write, what else can we expect, from Sun Prairie baseball?
Yeah, we don't traditionally go every year somewhere. We used to always go to the Metrodome and play up there before that got torn down. And that was also before we got turf. When we built this new high school in 2011, we got the baseball community here together, and we went out and we raised enough money to turf the infield. And that was a blessing. So that we're able to get on our field all the time. And so we don't really sometimes need to go to Minneapolis to get games and scrimmages and whatnot in. But we've gone to Minneapolis, we've gone to St. Louis, and we tried to get down there and play a few games down there. A few got rained out. So it was a great bonding experience, but we didn't get the games in that we wanted to. I always play Kimberly every year in a doubleheader. And the years that we go down or up to Kimberly, we'll try to stay overnight. And there's a family fun park, Badgerland fun park that's there. And so we let our kids have at it that like Friday night, and then Saturday go play Kimberly in a doubleheader. So we've done some of that stuff.
It just says so much about you and, playing Kimberly. You guys see each other in the most intense environments, and you're playing a doubleheader and staying over in their community. I think that's just kind of one thing that makes baseball guys unique, maybe different than other sports, kind of the fraternity of that. So that's really powerful stuff.
It's funny because I was talking to an old football coach, and he said something like that. He said, yeah, he goes, football coaches. He goes, I was a football coach, and the only other football coach I liked was myself. And it was just kind of interesting that he said that. And again, I don't know, how true that is, but I just know that obviously between the lines, man, you compete as hard as you can, but there isn't a whole lot of baseball coaches that I've got a problem with. And once the game is over with, and Ryan McGinnis and Kimberly and whatnot is a prime example. Like you had said, we've played in the championship game twice now, and we play each other every year and stuff like that. And once the game is over with, we become really, really good friends.
I think, just again, that younger coaches, older coaches, big school, small school, I think just being one of those guys, keeps you in that fraternity that's pretty tight. And, because things will come up, right? I mean, you talk to Ryan or you talk to Scott Holler or John Matera. These guys are athletic directors. You talk to these coaches who have been doing it for a long time, and they just want to help out if you're having a parent issue or whatever it may be. If you don't have that network, you kind of feel like you're out in an island a lot of times on your own.
Right. I totally agree.
Oh,
good group.
Yeah, absolutely. So during this, COVID shutdown, and, there's been a lot of professional development opportunities. And you mentioned earlier that, every year you feel like you're trying to improve something across your program. Is there something that's happened recently, something you've learned recently that maybe challenges how you teach a certain skill or a certain philosophy, a certain part of the game that you're starting to rethink because of maybe some new changes in baseball?
Oh man, that's a good question. I think as coaches we're always evolving, and that's why, you go to your clinics and read your books and watch your blogs and whatnot. A couple years ago, we went with a core velocity belt.
Okay.
And Vanderbilt is huge on that, and obviously one of the best programs in the country, and thought, well, if it's good enough for them, probably good enough for us. So we've invested. Another reason why you got to have your own booster club, because we've invested in a bunch of those core velocity belts, and they've kind of we had a guy come up and from Illinois that was had been to a lot of their sessions, and so he taught us some various drills on that. And I think the basics to that core velocity belt that changes philosophy is it's not about a lot of your fundamentals, like where is my chin to my shoulder when my hand is back here, and all of that is more or less your eyes and your feet, and it's kind of what they're talking about, and it's pretty simple, and it alleviates, I think, a lot of the things that these kids come back to the dugout, and say, hey coach, did you see, was I opening up too soon with this and this? And this core velocity belt has kind of eliminated some of that stuff. So that'd be one thing I would think.
Okay. Now you've been coaching for many years, and you kind of went through your journey in baseball. If you could kind of go back and, what do you know now that you wish you knew when you got started? What hard lessons have you learned throughout your decades in coaching?
We kind of talked about the standards that we have here in Sun Prairie, and I think maybe when I was younger, I was a lot more, what's the word? I was less patient, maybe. And I remember an example when I was Gary Bai's assistant, and the grounds crew guy, that when they did drag the diamond, and again, we're at Division I, so we're fortunate to even have that, right? But they'd always drag over the mushroom, and we'd spend a half an hour trying to find where second base peg was. And I said, I'm going to go up to the athletic director right now and tell him this is bullcrap, because we're spending all of our practice looking for this peg, and this is nonsense. And he's like, no, you're not. I'm like, I'm not? He's like, no. He goes, and Gary Bio is the best. He's really laid back, and he's in the WBCA Hall of Fame. But he just said, Rob, we'll sleep on it, and we'll talk to him in the morning. And he was so right. I wasn't going to get anything accomplished by going up there hot-headed and telling the athletic director, who at that time was Dave Anderson, who's now the WIA president. But that probably wouldn't have went well for me. And so just things like that, where everything is not important. And is that a hill you really want to die on? Do I really need to do that at this point? So I would think probably that would be my main thing.
So sleeping on it, a night of sleep, kind of the overnight 24-hour rule that I think a lot of us try to deal with parents as coaches. We got to do the same thing at times.
Right. Yeah. It's hard, but I think the older you get, you kind of learn some of that stuff. So you kind of wish you could go back and say to that kid that you barked at for missing the sign, hey, I might have been a little hard on that one,
Right.
sorry about that, but they're all still okay, I think.
All right. Well, Coach, last question for you. So you mentioned a couple, you like to read, reading blogs. Like, was there something you'd recommend to coaches? Is there a book? Is there an article? Someone to follow on social media? Like, what? How would you send us down a better path with resources?
One of the books that I like to read and I give to our kids to read if they're struggling a little bit mentally is Golf's Sacred Journey. And Mike D, I think, came to a clinic years ago and talked about that book. And so I read it and I thought it was really good. And it's just kind of, as you know, going to these clinics as well as like that red light, green light, yellow light, everything's going good. You're a green light and all of a sudden you shank one and you're in the tall stuff and you're mad. And now you try to get out of it. And instead of punching out, you hit it further out in and all of a sudden now you're at yellow light. And now are you going to stop? And are you able to get yourself back in the fairway and proceed? Or are you going to hit it even deeper? And now you're at red light. And, that sometimes happens with pitchers. They're cruising and all of a sudden should be strike 3 and they didn't get the call. And now they get ticked. Now the next pitch, they hit the guy. And then the next pitch is a wild pitch. The next guy gets a base hit and they score, and it just kind of teaches you a lot about yourself in that book. Some of the podcasts of John Gordon, I know I've hit a couple of his. Other things that I've read, Inside Pitch, that magazine, and Collegiate Baseball magazine. And I think the best thing that I've done is just go to practices. Like I said, I've gone to Minnesota's practices. I've gone to Mike D's at UIC. I've gone to Mike Davenport's here in Madison, and Coach Bo at Whitewater, great coach. We have so many really good coaches here in the state. You can go to high school coaches. Hard to go to their practices because you're practicing at the same time, but there's so many valuable assets and resources out there for us. Call Mark Fuller. He'll gladly give you the time of day. And especially now, I think he just had his knee replaced, so he's laying around. So call Mark and bug him with some baseball questions. He'd love to talk baseball all day to you. But yeah, I would say probably going to practices would be, and obviously the WBCA clinic is second to none, but go to those things and then, kind of read up whenever you can.
Mm-hmm. Great, Coach. Is there anything else? Is there anything else that comes to mind? Anything else you want to share about, maybe your journey through baseball, or any advice for other coaches?
The only advice I would give, and I tried to mention that earlier, is just kind of coach the way you want to coach, and not the way you feel that maybe your high school coach would want you to coach, or, the coach before you did it or whatever. Kind of blaze your own path and whatnot. I know now, again, kind of as I get older, a little softer maybe, we listen to music all the time during our practices, except for when we're really trying to maybe do some first and thirds and talking through some stuff. But during batting practice and during our fungos and stuff like that, we've always got music going and stuff like that. And, some throwback might go, I don't like that. You're here to, blah, blah, blah. But, do whatever you feel is right for you. And if you feel like letting the kids go on spring break and, giving them that week off and coming back and trying to make the most of it, do whatever is right for you and your program. But otherwise, I'm not very good at giving advice.
Well, Coach, you gave us plenty today. And so I want to thank you for your time and, and everything else. So I really do appreciate it.
Oh, yeah, it was my pleasure. Thanks for having me on. It was great chatting with you.
Absolutely.